Now I'm going to invite our last presentation, who is artist Shen Xin. Shen Xin's practice engages with film, video installation, and performative events, unholding commitment towards both risk and comfort in images presented. Individuals and communities appear across different services as units and as shifting pronouns that exist in complex socio-political systems to counter the potential of forming alternative power structures that can be oppressive. The protagonists in their works are empowered to narrate, speak, and act out of their desires, maintaining the integrities to be inconsistent, discontinued, and suspended. Uncompromisingly, their work fabricates the process of producing abstraction of inclusivity and foreignness, forming ways to be known to others that is reflexive of images, representational agencies. There are recent solo presentations that probably I would not read all out in the bio, and the presentation will be kind of like a fleeting conclusion of today's presentation, and after that we'll have a panel spelling the Interlocutors' Betrayal.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikita and Mia, for inviting me to this, to contribute to this. The nature of this talk will be a little bit different, I suppose. Bear with me. So in the durational time and space, which I will temporarily be speaking within, I'd like to follow and trace some thoughts that are both consistent and intentionally inconsistent in 3 works that are made through me. These works are Warm Spell, the work in the Times Art Center Berlin exhibition, Brine Lake, A New Body, and Solar Wheels of the Steppes. Before going to the 3 very much connected works, I will backtrack a bit and look at one older work and trace some origins of where the need for ghosts, which is part of what the title of this talk, Spelling the Interlocutor's Betrayal, refers to as interlocutor, a need that is spatial, physical, emotional, and linguistic. I asserted the position through, for I recognize and firmly believe in works being made through someone rather than by someone. Perhaps this is rooted in the idea of the body being an avenue, which I will be speaking about through the work Commerce de Esprit, a 4-channel video installation whose script incorporates a classical interpretation of Zhuangzi, which is set against the contemporary interpretations of Taoism from French sinologists, with some of them identifying with Derridian deconstruction. I'll play a trailer.
我想知道语言在什么时候对你而言变成了候补和替代。我得以在此替代品中认识到一种精神的价值和流通。
This is the installation shot of the work. So in this work, the incorporation of the various interpretations of Taoism formed a script that is a monologue, written from one individual's, my mother's perspective, speaking to another, my father, who couldn't speak back. It was written during my father's coma last summer, And these interpretations are tested, put alongside each other as tools for communication with someone who had forgotten language, whose body had inherited a different nature. Some examples of these lines from the script. My practice tries to draw attention to the interlocutor as with the agency of something you choose or choose not to speak to. There's also wariness of whether the interlocutor had already been set up before a conversation begins. The idea of governance in general is linked to an active absence, being the interlocutor addressing and being addressed. To associate the idea of governance with an active absence refers to an anarchist reading of Taoism's potential. As an active absence, it refers to active non-action or wu wei, performing the prologue that is full of potential before a seemingly unavoidable outbreak of violent interventions. An active absence also alludes to the linguistic forms that are of an abstract nature, perhaps specifically of ancient Chinese language. One of the main opposing stances made by modern anarchists against Taoism being interpreted as anarchism is of the language used. As one of the main tenets of modern anarchism proclaims, no appeal must be made to the authority of metaphysical entities, and that Tao is undoubtedly a metaphysical entity. However, the debate of whether Tao is of metaphysical nature can't exist without examining its specificity in linguistic formation. This is part of why Commerce de Esprit tries to investigate. Tao describes the body of language, sometimes turns into an avenue for action, or becomes an amalgamation of the senses, which comes from a combination of the classical Taoism interpretation and the French sinologist perspective. The other word that is used and discussed in a lot of the work is consciousness, being conscious of another's consciousness exit, and the consciousness that knows the body is the other. The metaphysics of Tao is of a bodily order, where no one true part rules the rest. It embodies the potential of an egoless grounding as the condition of restoring a harmonious society. In Taoism and Anarchism by John Rabb, we are introduced to Burton Watson as the translator of Zhuangzi, who positions Zhuangzi as a man of the South. Considering Zhuangzi was living around the time of 300 BC, a man of the South would mean the areas at the far southern end of the Yellow River Valley. He would most likely have been practicing pre-sanitary ways of living in pre-Zhou and pre-feudal era. Thus, there are more ways to read him than anti-imperial. Marx's analysis of Tao Te Ching refers to people of the South as primitive communal tribes, with quotation marks. Within the trajectory of the historical development of labor, this offers a potential of looking at an earlier example of the construction project of race as an ethnic relationship with the construction of a nation state, which predates the recognition of Han as the majority, which is also very consistent in a lot of the other works made through me. Different from modern anarchism's vision for the society of individual communal beings, CDE and other words seek ways to realize non-egoistic selves, which embodies the process of transforming from the egoistic self. These processes include experiences and research based in reality through introducing suspended interlocutors whose physical attributes seem to be gradually disappearing, from having a voice, color, to having nothing, to an automated non-existence. For me, it's generative to wonder about the composition of the metaphysics in Tao as a pathway in thinking about what ghosts stand for. I turn now to the three works I referred to in my opening, in which the interlocutors are of a ghostly nature. Warm Spell, which was shot on the Thai island of Koh Yao Yai and set amidst the environmental change caused by global warming, explores the economic and cultural challenges the island and its inhabitants, human and non-human, face as it shifts from a predominantly farming community to one dependent on tourism. The work constructs a ghostly presence, weaving through the traces of disparity in climate change amongst high and low emission countries and the experiences of tourism based on racial representations. And I'll play the trailer of the work.
Bad when people stare at us. I hate it. It's warm. I'm hungry.
Yeah, but they come for working. Every 3 months have to go to government. They check for passport or visa or something. But can do only for one job.
If you
come
come
for
for fishing, you do
you
fishing.
make care for fishing.
If
If
you
you
come
come
for
for
building,
building,
you
you
do
do
for
for
building.
building.
If you do
If you
another job,
police
come to you.
The following slides consist of stills from Warm Spell, in which both color and black and white visions merge at the meeting point of difference and equivalence as to the inhabitants and the environment of the island. The combination can point to a simultaneous happening event, or they might describe different natures of seeing. The ghost vision is communicated in black and white and cuts their active absence in a setup that is of a documentary nature. These different perspectives document different groups of people, singularly viewed as dispersed, but which becomes antagonistic when put together in the compact environment driven by a tourist community. Labor is grouped on different levels. There is the level where Thai laborers hang out and share complaints of their stuck-up customers in their native language. Another level is the grouping of various foreign laborers where shared language is missing, so language as a tool is not applicable. Leisure is experienced through various economic standards and distributed to different locations. Resort caters to European tourists.
I know the sea.
Guards the Chinese tourists on budget, situated at the other end of the same beach. Warm spells spells out the surface heat waves tend to linger uninterrupted. Lines and trucks of people traverse the natural resources of the island, which seems to bind and motivate this coming together. The lenses document this environment, which consists of traces of what it might become due to the climate and warmth. Dying coral and rising smoke, for example, yet a common thread is not the urgency upheld by the tourists here. Ernesto Laclau's analysis of populism reveals the political construction of the people is essentially catachrastical. The act of naming something that is essentially unnameable is a condition of language functioning. The people is of a figural nature rather than a literal one. Its figural nature, linguistically, is in sync with the investment of intention and effort for its formation. In Warm Spell, the plurality of time and space inhabited by different groupings of people, tourists, laborers, Chinese, Europeans, is where the ghosts intend to inhabit. The ghost is figural. They are the leg of a chair which does not own a name, the warmth of a girl which signals no origin, the desire to represent which satisfies no specification. Not only is the ghost often on the receiving end of expression of sexual desires, they also speak with the sound of electricity. The ghost has a body which welcomes the sensual experiences of seeing and feeling. That is their most significant characteristic.
From Prem, but I don't know tsunami.
First low
tide, 10
tide,
o'clock.
10 o'clock.
I tell my friend this.
That's
Today,
day 11:40, low tide start, but slowly.
Now 10 o'clock, low tide start. Current water.
In 15 minutes,
high tide come
high
back.
tide came back again.
I see the sea have from Prem. But if like this, cannot stop on the beach. or cannot stop some island. We cannot. We have to wait in the sea, follow the water. One day in the sea, I go fishing 4 o'clock in morning. 6 o'clock I come back. Yeah, I'm not sure. I wait. Low tide, high tide stop. 5 o'clock stop. Then I wait more 1 hour. Then I come back. In that time, one day no lunch, have only water and smoking in the boat. Hungry, but I have fish in the boat. I cannot cooking.
If desire is a fiction here, yet it does not perform as a portal, then it does not demand entering, and it can't be entered. This is what motivated the setup of a fictional thread of a seemingly nameable female figure, whose expressions of lust, hunger, and weariness of the heat out there is open for interpretation, but does not secure judgment. Or rather, the judgment will have to be a mirroring one, for the subject interlocutor of the woman's reenactment is permanently suspended. The ghost is also suspended due to their multilingual capabilities. The film operates through Dutch, spoken by a Turkish-Dutch immigrant who opened the first resort on the island, Thai, spoken by the employees of the resort, and occasionally English, Chinese, and German. In all, it is an embodiment of the senses with the ghost, where naming becomes unnecessary. It is as if the fabrication of the ghost allows cohabitation of a space as a first step in relation to the specificity of the island, the heat, the people, etc. I guess the first step towards the quest of comfortably sharing a space with ghosts is to see how the ghost dwells in their own body. The body builds up memories and extends its care towards others. The body then can refer to a collective body, or point to that it has always been. Like in this last image, the focus in both technical and attached terms is distributed amongst its foreground, midground, and background. I moved to the work Brine Lake, A New Body, which is a multi-channel video installation that is currently being edited. Everything you see and hear are part of the process. The work is set in a fictional factory where iodine is produced as byproduct of natural gas sourced from deep-sea brine lakes. Korean, Japanese, and Russian are spoken in multiple episodes. The protagonists have multiple encounters and conversations with two unseen employees of the factory whose visions are overtaken by the cameras. The context of their interactions reveal the complexity of Korean immigrants' experience in Russia and Japan, within which statelessness can be seen as potent. The multiple negotiations around the need for iodine and its versatile properties metaphorically speak to potentials of transnational identities. Iodine is an element known to whoever uses or desires it. It is also an element that asks how else it can be known, such as in its recycling or for new energies. It is also an element that will remain unknown. Returning to Laclau, how does language name a thing, a person, a state of being that is unnameable? How to recall, retain the abstract formation of language in its usage and application? Where are the blockages placed in order to further a journey? Brine signifies something abstract, like when an animal's body is preserved in brine and does not decay, death without decay, without a crossover. Like being stateless forces other kinds of belongings.
私は服従せずに何かを生み出す同質性を尊重します。そう、私たちはそういったもの、背後に潜んでいるものに注意しなければなりません。別の名前をつけませんか？別の名前で呼ぶことが必要な時もあります。一つの機能を支持するということは、 意図的にもう一方の機能を隔離するということになりますよね。つまりそうまさに排除です。進歩への裏切りのように聞こえます。進歩への裏切りのように聞こえます。
The research process of making this and other works have always involved translating history and fiction into emotional terms. For example, I quote the script. How unstable is the extraction process? Are those considered impure? I imagine it's like getting rid of waste that is considered incompatible. For iodine, the experience of time seems to me to be economically and socially grounded. To be a citizen having deep roots somewhere is linked to the expectation of being buried there and to die there, end quote. In Brine Lake, language is used as much for the negotiation of iodine business deals as it is for personal internal monologues. There is mentioning of the people, whether they have every right to be worrying about ground subsidence, or the people as deficient beings who needs iodine as a supplement. In Brine Lake, the element iodine is transforming into a demand itself. No specificity is given throughout the work of identities of any actors or ghosts. Meanwhile, these characters all take strong positions in the dialogical spaces they engage with, through statements, emotional reactions, provocations, and new connections formed. This strategy protects the interlocutor from any kind of emptiness they can potentially be subjected to, not having to participate in a discourse of complicity with what they are recognized for. Sufferings remains in place, somewhere. Yet this somewhere is also nowhere. This protective space is communal for any active participant. A story can be told in many ways: a set, a scene, a linear development, a motivation. They are all laid out, yet all of them remain suspended. Building the body of the ghost extends care to everyone involved, creating a space that is open but protected, and there is no way to exploit. Like in Wormspell, the active absence of the ghost enforces relationality, helping to keep suffering and endurance that comes in experiences of not belonging from becoming empty, helping to cherish the particularity revealed in plurality.
도시에서 철수할 때 선생님이 나한테 이런 말씀을 해주셨어요. 내가 지금까지 널 가르쳤던 건 다 틀렸다. 그러니까 네 신념대로 명확하게 살아라. 나중엔 정말 그걸 지키면서 살았어요.
ちょっと정하씨처럼 산 거죠. 어느 쪽으로 돌아가는 것도 선택하지 않으면서요.
Какие сообщества?
Как сообщество.
Как сообщества.
Lastly and briefly, I will speak about Solar Whales of the Steppes. It's a working title, something I'm thinking about, researching, and reading for. The work will likely be of a science fiction nature, where metaphors for negative experiences can be a real portal. Currently, my research has to do with tapping into nuances and the affective dimension of violence, where labor is no longer concealed. Labor here firstly refers to the labor of making the work itself. Violence here refers to the plurality of time and space. It is a work where dialects, Uyghur dialects specifically, will be aligned with the fantastical space of wild horses' futures. Currently, tensions are being held between so-called domesticity and wildness when it comes to horses of the North American steppes. Horse families are being separated and put into different sanctuaries or holding facilities before further annihilation. Authorities say this will minimize their threat and damage caused by their nature. Wild horses are scientifically believed to have gone extinct, and what's left is already a hybridity. But the intentions behind the deconstruction of that hybridity is one of power and dominance. It has the potential to resist asking the question of why is it important, since what might be happening to the horses is happening somewhere else and nowhere at the same time. Thus, a mobility is gained in aligning spaces with language. Solar whales will likely show no images of human figures. The suspension of identities will transform into something more than gestural, which is perhaps the potential of a different kind of storytelling, one that's not positioned against anything and through which specificity is forced to function differently. Thank you.